The Fallen. The Fallen are humanity's oldest and most unrelenting enemy. As the Vanguard currently understands them, they are ruthless scavengers, brutal and uncaring, who arrived on their massive ketches in the wake of the collapse to loot and pillage the Sol System's devastated worlds. It was they who brought near crippling defeat to the perimeters of the last city during the Battle of the Six Fronts, and later the Battle of the Twilight Gap, bloody events which cost the city the lives of hundreds of its finest Guardian protectors. For the people of the city, the Fallen are the truest aspect of the otherwise intangible darkness that threatens their very existence, and stories of the macabre cruelty is told across the city to frighten disobedient children. At night, those stories become a reality, as the howls of the Fallen can be heard from beyond the walls, a haunting chorus which reminds all its citizens, children and adults alike, that Earth no longer belongs to humanity. The Fallen adhere to a strict hierarchy within their nomadic societal groups, placing ritualistic emphasis on earning one's place in the ranks by proving their worth to the rest of the group. This caste system can be best understood as a pyramid of meritocracy, to which the Vanguard have assigned names for the members of each tier. The first tier of this pyramid are the Dregs. They are the smallest and most poorly equipped of all the Fallen ranks, their growth stunted by a considerable lack of the ether that all Fallen need to survive. They are often seen roaming the worlds in packs, wielding shock pistols, shock daggers, and shock grenades. As their title would suggest, Dregs are the lowest of the low among the Fallen, viewed as little more than scrounging vermin and a drain on limited resources by the higher echelons. This symbolic caste division is given physical clout in the form of docking, a practice in which a Fallen's lower set of arms are amputated by a superior, in a ritual of agonising public humiliation. Docking is often a punishment for the inability to follow orders, failure to capture or kill key targets, or open rebellion against a house and its rulers. But unlike humans, Fallen can easily regrow severed limbs, although the right to do so must be earned through merit. Unless a Dreg can prove him or herself to be a productive and valuable member of the group, the docking caps that prevent their limbs from regrowing shall never be unlocked by their superiors. It is this one truth that makes Dregs arguably the most dangerous of all the Fallen. They have nothing left to lose and everything to gain. Fallen mythos has many tales of Dreg heroes who rise from nothing to earn both sets of arms and ascend to glory, one of which is elaborated on in the Grimoire card with the Dreg's Promise sidearm. There is a story, old as time, of he who could catch the stars. Unnamed and eternal, the star catcher would lead the Fallen, rising from the lowest station to the highest exalted peaks. It is a fairy tale allowed to persist by the forearmed to keep the docked hopeful, placated. Even the low may one day ascend. Myth, fairy tale, or a prophecy of what will be, it's best not to take chances. After all, one can't reach across the black to claim dominion over 10,000 stars with 10,000 arms if they die here and now with only 2. Above the Dregs in rank are the Vandals, the seasoned regulars of Fallen crews who make up the main bulk of the offence against the city. Soldiers, brawlers, assassins and scouts. The versatility of Vandals allows them to be deployed into the field in a number of specialised roles, as they are proficient at both long range and in close quarters combat. A Vandal's arsenal is as varied as their roles are within the hierarchy of a Fallen crew. Shock troops lead the charge with the tracking projectiles of shock rifles. Forward scouts and sentries look onto their targets down the sights of powerful wire rifles, while the notorious assassins favour the cloak and the shock blade. All are equally dangerous and hostile towards Guardians. The most striking feature which distinguishes the Vandals from the lowly Dregs are the presence of both sets of arms. Vandals are those Dregs skilled enough to survive the most gruelling of trials, to ascend by sheer perseverance, to finally earn the hard-won respect of their superiors and the privileges which come with promotion. Promotion sees their docking caps unlocked and their ration of ether sizably increased, allowing for new Vandals to regrow their lost limbs and rapidly grow in build and stature. This ritual recognition of sacrifice and strength is an honour, a rite of passage within Fallen society, which keeps the strong in power and encourages the weak to seek out the greatest of challenges in the hopes of proving their ultimate worth to the group. Next in the ranks are the Captains. the ferocious commanders and tacticians of the Fallen Assault, zealously loyal to their house, Kel, and Archon. Captains are the elite of all Fallen warriors, vandals who have clawed and knifed their way to the top with methodical brutality, scattering bodies and limbs in their wake for both the glory of their house and to earn the trust and respect of their Kel. And with a Kel's favour comes great privilege. As a reward for their unyielding loyalty, a captain's ration of ether is the largest, and as such their bodies are much larger and more powerful than those of the vandals and dregs who serve beneath them. They are also outfitted with the finest armour and weapons in the Fallen arsenal, including the robust but deadly shrapnel launcher, lethal dual shock blades, and even scorch cannons, weapons designed by the Fallen to breach the hulls of enemy ships, all of which require the expense of considerable resources to forge. Captains who show excessive brutality and prowess in battle, or excel at leading key tactical assaults, are sometimes granted the right to command their own skiff in the House fleet by their Kel. Such a privilege is a coveted honour, a rank elevation that sees captains rise to become barons within the Fallen hierarchy. Barons are powerful and respected members of Fallen society, second only to the Kel and Archon, and their nimble skiffs make up the main bulk of any Fallen fleet. They are the tangible expression of a Kel's authority to lesser Fallen, the hand that reaches out to smite the unworthy and the disloyal. The Servitors are a difficult member of the Fallen hierarchy to place, due to the hazy information regarding the true nature of their sentience. They are giant spherical machines, floating lights with sleepless eyes, living relics of a once mighty spacefaring civilization. If the Kel is the hand, and the Archon is the mind, then the Servitors truly are the heart of the Fallen, objects of religious devotion which provide sustenance to all Fallen, biologically and spiritually. Servitors are packed with ultra-sophisticated technology, machinery which allows them to transmute matter and energy scavenged by the Fallen into ether, a gaseous substance which acts as the Fallen's ethereal lifeblood. Their onboard systems also support powerful void energy weapons, in addition to superior defensive capabilities which can heal nearby Fallen. But perhaps one of the most interesting functions of the Servitors are their use in spaceflight and tactical analysis. Every Fallen ship has a contingent of Servitors working the engines, their collective thoughts and individual willpower working in unison to guide their skiff or ketch to its pre-plotted destination. This ability is still not yet fully understood, but the Awoken have made some progress in the aftermath of the Reef Wars, concluding that Servitors have the strange ability to taste the void for jamming signals and electromagnetic pulses, an invaluable ability which makes each and every Servitor a master tactician when it comes to space warfare. This begs the question, do Servitors possess other senses with which they can make an accurate analysis of the outside world? And if so, is this irrefutable proof that they are truly sapient, capable of rational thought and reason, like the Exos and Warminds? Not all Servitors are the same. Each Servitor belongs to a different algorithm, some of which have permissions over others. Vanguard is currently aware of several different Servitor algorithms, including Sepix, Simix, Calix, and Orbix, and they suspect that there are more algorithms out there in the darkness. Each algorithm is headed by a prime Servitor, from which all other Servitors of the same algorithm are created. The Kels are the political leaders of the Fallen Houses, their esteemed rank won by the division and conquest of all other potential rivals in the wake of a previous Kel's death. They are ferocious masters of combat, the oldest and most cunning of all Fallen warriors, who are both feared and respected by lesser Fallen. From their massive ketches they terrorise the survivors of the collapse, pillaging countless xenobites of Golden Age technology and ruthlessly slaughtering any human that happens to cross their path, often collecting the skulls of defeated Guardians as trophies. As such, Kels are key targets for Guardian strike teams, as the death of a Kel will often throw a Fallen house into complete disarray. At all times, a Kel is surrounded by an entourage of the finest warriors, their highly trained guards and enforcers. Members of the Kel's guard are handpicked from birth, stuffed full of ether to make them strong, and brainwashed to make them unthinkingly loyal to the Kel. Whether their selection is dictated by the rank and achievements of the parents, the quality of their genetics, or by pure randomness is unknown. The Enforcers act as the Kel's own private army, thuggish officers who keep the fallen rank and file serving the correct ruler when a house's political situation becomes contentious. They are often deployed during civil war to deter lesser fallen from rallying behind rivals who covet the title of Kel. While Kels act as a house's political leader and senior military general, they do not rule alone. A Kel is only one side of a triumvirate which makes up the command structure of any fallen house. The other two sides of this leadership model are the Archon and the Prime Servitor, the High Priest and the House Deity respectively. The Kel's word is law, and it is the Archon who relays their commands to the Prime Servitor, who accordingly passes on these commands to the lesser servitors beneath it. All three work together when leading the House fleet. The Kel pilots the helm, the Archon navigates the star charts, and the Prime Servitor ensures that the servitors which work the engines of the fleet ships are all in sync. The Archon also acts as the Kel's confidant and advisor, and above all, retains the power to dock and demote them at will if they feel the house is being led astray from its true purpose. The relationship between all three parties is sometimes tenuous, and has been known to strain to the point of civil war in the past. The only Kel thus far not to behave as such was Skolas, Wolf Kel, whose futile bid to unite the houses under one banner cost him his life, and has perhaps destroyed the House of Wolves forever. The Vanguard currently knows of only a couple of Kels: Draxis, Winter Kel, who was murdered aboard his own ketch on Venus by Guardians, and Skolas, Wolf Kel, who was captured and then killed in judgment by Guardians inside the Reef's Prison of Elders. A third, the King Kel, is an elusive trickster who has thus far evaded scrutiny by Guardians, although it is speculated that they were the instigator of the Battle of the Twilight Gap, uniting the houses with a false promise of salvation in a bid to claim the power of the Traveller for themselves. As for the House of Devils, it is widely rumoured that their Kel was killed in single combat by none other than legendary titan Saint 14, the Exo caving in the skull of the fallen warlord with one fatal blow of his fabled helmet. The House of Exile actively chooses to bow to no Kel, which is why they refuse to join Skolas' rebellion. Beside every Kel stands their Archon, the High Priest and chief disciple of the House's Prime Servitor. Archons are revered amongst the fallen, acting as the mortal conduit between their race and the ancient machine gods they pay homage to. It is unknown whether these High Priests are the caretakers of the Prime Servitors, or simply vicious arbiters of the Prime's will, though the latter seems more likely, considering that the Archon possesses the moral authority to dock and depose of a Kel if they stray from the House's true purpose. This mysterious symbiosis between Archon and Prime is still not fully understood, although it has been suggested that the bond they share is heavily influenced by the flow of ether between the two parties. We already know that all servitors have the ability to heal nearby fallen, via infusing them with fresh ether. And within the Prison of Elders, the Awoken have observed the resurrected Calyx Prime draining its servants of their very life force in order to heal itself, absorbing every last fume of ether and leaving their former worshippers as little more than empty husks, devoid of any soul. Although Calyx Reborn is technically not a true god, its carnivorous relationship with its Archons is still unnerving, and begs the question, could this kind of relationship be true of all Primes? If so, Primes and Archons are technically invulnerable when in close proximity to one another. Taking down an Archon priest first, away from its Prime, would thus make the Prime vulnerable to conventional weapons. The Vanguard currently knows of only two Archons, Rixis, Devil Archon, who was slain on Earth by Guardians for the possession of a rare NLS warp drive, and Axor, Wolf Archon, who was stolen from the Prison of Elders by Tanix the Scarred and promptly killed by a Guardian strike team seeking to earn Queen Morosov's favour. We know from intelligence gathered by Prince Aldrin that Skolas' Archon was murdered by Scorix, a member of the House of Wolves who rejected Skolas' Kelship and sought to join the House of Exile in defiance. The location and identity of both the Archon of Winter and the Archon of Kings is still unknown. Prime Servitors are at the apex of fallen society. These exalted machine deities are precious relics from a bygone age, zealously worshipped by the disciples with the gift of life-sustaining ether, without which all fallen would inevitably wither and perish. Each of the fallen houses worships a specific prime which acts as a pillar of that house's ruling triumvirate, alongside the Kellan Archon. The House of Devils once venerated the recently destroyed Sepix Prime, which fell to a Guardian strike team deep in the bowels of old Russia's Cosmodrome. The House of Winter's Prime, Simics Prime, is rumoured to have been destroyed long ago, but some speculate that it was reborn as the lesser servitor Simics III, before being destroyed by Guardians who sought to reclaim the Ishtar Academy's lost archive. The House of Wolves Prime, Calyx Prime, has been missing ever since the Queen of the Reef merged the house into her realm, but some believe it to be hiding amongst the Inake group of moons orbiting Jupiter. Those wolves incarcerated within the Prison of Elders have subsequently, out of desperation, created a new prime to serve, Calyx Reborn, although this twisted abomination is no true god. As for the primes of the House of Exile, Judgment, and Kings, little to nothing is known. Perhaps they too have been destroyed, or linger in hidden places that Guardians have yet to explore. The death of a prime is a travesty for any fallen house. Without their god, new servitors cannot be born, resulting in a loss of centuries of collected knowledge and the means of creating ether. In short, by killing a prime, you are murdering an entire fallen house, an entire nation of their declining race. And it is for this reason precisely that Guardians target these revered machines, to break the fallen morale and shatter any hopes of continued survival in an alien solar system. In addition to their servitors, the Fallen employ other forms of advanced technology to support them in combat, albeit these machines are not sentient like servitors. In light engagements and scouting missions, the Fallen will often deploy shanks into the field, small hovering drones which are easily modified to carry a variety of deadly weapons. Shanks come in many varieties. The most common are equipped with mounted shock pistols. Other subtypes of shank include repeater shanks, which have a higher rate of fire compared to the standard model, tracer shanks, which sport a long-range wire rifle, and exploding shanks, which are designed to detonate explosive charges when in close proximity to enemy combatants. In prolonged or heavy combat, walkers can be deployed from the hulls of skiffs. Walkers, often called spider tanks by Guardians, are mobile gun platforms which lumber around the battlefield on 6 supportive legs. Although their insect-like design gives them an eerie, almost lifelike quality, these heavily armoured monstrosities are purely robotic. They possess several methods for engaging enemies, the most deadly of which are their omnidirectional solar cannon, shoulder-mounted arc missiles, and arc-heavy machine gun. Mine dispensers generate bouncing arc mines to provide defence against dismounted infantry, and an onboard shank foundry produces armoured drones for tactical support and field repairs. While skiffs and ketchers act as stealthy dropships and dreadnoughts in the air, pikes are the primary mode of transport on the ground for the Fallen. A pike looks and sounds like rusted junk, but moves like a shark, and is capable of accelerating to fantastic speeds, while twin arc guns mow down infantry. The Fallen deploy lighter versions of the pike as high-speed harassers and patrol vehicles, while the heavy pikes are reserved for heavy combat and demolition projects. Unlike the standard assault pike, the weightier heavy pikes are equipped with high-caliber twin-nose arc cannons and dual expel ports to either side that launch bouncing arc mines if the enemy gets too close. Before we go into the history of the Fallen, we must first ask ourselves, what is ether? Ether dependence is perhaps one of the most perplexing aspects of the Fallen for any Guardian to grasp. It appears to be some kind of gaseous chemical compound, a gas which acts as the Fallen's native form of sustenance. This gas is toxic to the lungs of alien creatures such as humans and Awoken, but on the flip side, it appears to renew the vitality of Fallen who inhale it regularly, and in some cases can even heal wounds that would have otherwise been fatal. There is a distinct correlation between the size of ether rations and a Fallen's physical build. Dregs, who receive the smallest rations, are scrawny and stunted, while Kells and Archons, who consume the most ether, tower over their lesser brethren and possess powerful, muscular bodies. How a mere gas can trigger this kind of metamorphosis is unknown, as nothing in our world emulates this characteristic. What is known, however, is that ether is native to the lost fallen homeworld. Were then their servitors created to mass produce ether in order to expand the ancient fallen empire across multiple worlds? If so, this explains why the fallen have been able to adapt to the environments of the Sol system's inner planets with such ease. So long as they have their servitors, the fallen can continue to produce ether from the ruins of the Golden Age and scrape out a meagre living as best they can. And as the servitors are the only entities that can still produce ether, this explains why the fallen worship machines that they themselves have created, rather than worshipping a deity that supposedly created them. The religious aspect of ether is hotly debated by the warlock circles of the Tower. Some believe such reverence is born out of practicality. The fallen need ether to survive, and thus it is a precious resource to them. Others believe that ether is more than just a gas. Some even daring to hypothesize that ether may in fact be alive, may in fact be a collective consciousness, may in fact be the souls of the fallen. Any Guardian will have noticed that when they kill a fallen, ether leaks from their bodies like smoke. What if this is in fact their soul leaving their mortal form? We know that the fallen can restore the souls of the dead or dying, given sufficient supplies of ether. Axor, Wolf Archon, was one such fallen, who was seemingly resurrected by the House of Winter, his soul renewed after spending years in cryogenic stasis. What if the fallen are not as we see them? What if the bodies they drive are simply husks which the soul inhabits? If so, the religious connection between servitors, ether, and the dead could be so much more complex than we realise. So what of the Fallen's history and their future as a species? Despite their reputation for unbridled slaughter and unspeakable cruelty, there are indeed hints of ancient nobility to the Fallen, the tattered remnants of a once technologically superior civilization, built upon the noble ideals of strength and unity and valour in battle. The Kells of the scattered Fallen houses still claim to be royalty, descended from ancient bloodlines of the fiercest warriors, while their floating spherical servitors and advanced machinery allude to an age of wondrous technological advancement, an age akin to humanity's golden age. But this begs the question, what could possibly have reduced such a proud race of warriors to the mere scavengers that they are today? Little is known about the once mighty spacefaring civilization of the Fallen, save for the legends passed down by their ancestors of an event named the Whirlwind, an event which heralded the end of that glorious civilization and a descent into darkness. What is clear is that the Fallen once had a home, a world of their own, which underwent a dramatic atmospheric transformation that rendered it uninhabitable. Varix the Loyal, House Judgment Envoy to the Queen of the Reef, secretively safeguards the history of the Fallen, but has spoken to visiting guardians of his race's forgotten plight, in the hopes of kindling a future understanding between our two peoples. First, the Great Machine. Then, sky fell away. Whirlwind ripped away the past. All honour lost. All hope. Judgment not enough. Cannot keep wolves from kings, scar from winter. Fell to fighting. Fell to hate. The Great Machine. This entity is spoken of by Varix with some kind of reverence. Does the Great Machine speak to you, as it once spoke to me? It is mine too, Guardian. Why did the Guardians get the Great Machine's blessing? Was it like that before the Whirlwind? Were there fallen heroes crowned in ghosts who strode the battlefield, fearless and full of light? Why do you tell stories of reclaiming the lost glory of humanity, and no stories about the lost glory of Varix's people, the House of Judgment, that once kept codes of dignity and law? Skolas too spoke of the Great Machine, believing it to be the only means of saving his people from extinction. Remember the hope that brought us here. Remember the age before the Whirlwind, when ether ran free, when we ruled ourselves and our futures as kings. We wanted more than glimmer and glints. Always remember that we came to this star in hope. And remember that we were denied. Remember the city of the death of children, the city that docks, which claimed for itself the Great Machine that might have saved us. Remember the city that even now sends its ghouls to murder our primes, starve our ether, and leave our young to die gasping. Curse that city in its name. The curse is just. We gathered to take the city and save ourselves from extinction, saying to each other, we must be a storm, a whirlwind, a darkness. For it is said that only pain may be stolen from the dark, and we can let no more be stolen from us. From these accounts, we can accurately discern that the Great Machine, as the Fallen call it, is in fact the Traveller, the slumbering spherical god which silently floats above Earth's last safe city. The god that we claim blessed humanity alone with advanced technology, longer lifespans, and newly terraformed worlds, out of unconditional love. Were these same gifts bestowed upon another before us? The Fallen? The Elixni, as they called themselves? After what I have learnt from my travels as a guardian, I believe it did. And I also believe that when the darkness came, the Traveller fled from the Elixni in the name of self-preservation, leaving behind an army of loyal followers to fight the dark alone, to buy it time to escape. The worlds it had terraformed fell into decay, becoming uninhabitable, their atmospheres devoid of ether. With ether scarce, the Elixni had no choice but to abandon their homeworlds and to follow the light out of the dark. After spending years adrift in the vast vacuum of space, homeless and godless, the morals and tenets which their civilization had once flourished upon fell to hatred and despair. House Judgment lost control of the masses. Rival Kells fought for greater control of the migrant fleet, and spiritually conflicted Archons raised up false gods in the shape of the Great Machine, ultimately fracturing their race into the disparate houses that we see today. Only once would they all rejoin each other in unity, in one last push to reclaim their god and deny themselves extinction. The Battle of the Twilight Gap. A battle which in the long run has cost the Elixni near everything. For that act of transgression, humanity now sends out its undead protectors, the Guardians, to assassinate Kells, Archons and Primes, to gut the leadership of the houses and to ensure they can never rise against the city again. But in doing so, we push the Elixni ever closer to annihilation. Two courses of action rose in defiance of this inevitability. Skolas, the new Kell of Wolves, proclaimed himself Kell of Kells, a prophesied hero who would lead the Elixni into the light and unite all houses forever. In retaliation to Skolas' brutal military campaign to realise his destiny, Varix betrayed him to the Queen of the Reef, preferring instead for their race to broker peace with the inhabitants of the Sol system and work together to fight the darkness. War brings only death, and with each death, the Elixni lose one too many lives to bear. Perhaps Skolas wasn't the one to claim for himself the ancient mantle of Kell of Kells. Perhaps another was destined to stand in his place, one which the darkness would not expect. As I left the reef for the last time in this long cycle, Varix spoke to me these parting words. The alternative is Skolas' strength, fighting together, raging against extinction. Look where that's gotten the species. House of Devils Prime is dead. The House of Winter's leadership, devastated. The poor exiles trying to claw out some security against the Hive. In the last few years, the Fallen have lost so much, and everything is escalating around us. There are gods and powers converging on this system, old machines waking up, old bones whispering flatteries. We need a new way. The Fallen may yet accept peaceful, lawful rule. We may yet survive. We'll hang on. And I sincerely hope that they do. The shadows are converging beyond the Jovians. Saturn's rings lost to the light. The Taken King is coming, and we will need every ally that we can find, even those that we once called enemy.